When I had found out that Prince Harry had written a memoir, I was a little split. On one hand, I couldn't help looking at him and saying, spoiled rich boy, all grown up. He's literally a prince. What would he know? And on the other hand, he did just walk away from all of that. He married a woman who upset a lot of apple carts in the monarchy, a black woman. And if I had to go out drinking with a member of the royal family, well, it would have been Princess Margaret. But Harry would have been a close second. I know Margaret has been dead for 20 years, but she is the obvious choice. Come on. I kind of wanted to make a video asking, is it worth reading Spare? Assuming that it would either be surprisingly excellent or clearly terrible. And kind of disappointingly for this video anyway, it's neither. But what you get instead is a really intimate portrait of a man who fits so many contradictory stereotypes. A man who is really flawed, but who is working on those flaws. You undoubtedly get Harry's voice. He's telling you his truth, not necessarily the truth, his truth, what he thinks is true. It's honest and it's really stripped back. This is the Prince Harry who has killed 25 people, who cavalierly states that he has lost count of the number of prosthetic limbs he has drunk champagne out of, who calls his brother out for being racist towards his wife. And after reading Spare, I simultaneously like him more and like him less. I'll make this clear, I am discussing Spare, the memoir. I am reviewing it as a book. If you want some sort of breakdown on what Harry said about who and what new information is out there, know that I wasn't even sure that Charles was officially king until 8 weeks after the Queen died. On this channel, we talk about books, and apparently we think it's fine to use the royal we when talking about ourselves. I had another concern about Spare too. Prince Harry is not a writer. He's done nothing in his life that has made me believe he could write a sentence, and his book was not ghostwritten. Harry even reads the audiobook. Celebrity memoirs are sold on authors' interest level, not on their ability to write. And well, Prince Harry, the interest level is high. Prince Harry's writing quality, while not at Chanel Miller level, for example, is certainly not the worst. It's actually pretty good. There's nothing in the quality which took me out of the book at all. He comes across, for the most part, as charming and honest and easy to get along with, and he kept me interested in his story until the end, something I really wasn't sure he would be able to do. It's not hard to feel for Harry from the start, as he details the impact of his mum's tragic death on him. Harry is struck by the unbelievableness of it all, tragically wondering if Mum had faked it, wondering if she would call for him and William at a later date, then wondering, well, if she did fake it all, why didn't she let him know? Why did she cause him such pain? But maybe she just had to do it that way so nobody found out. It's tragically sad, and it's had a profound effect on the rest of Harry's life. He was told to walk behind the coffin, or as he called it, the empty box, and not cry. Harry never cries for his mum. He never mourns, and he is rewarded for it. He's scared that if he deals with his emotions, he will be letting go of his mother, and he is not ready to do that. Even in this book, over 20 years after her death, he never says that she is dead. He never confirms her death. All you get is a very young boy's grief, then a young man's grief, and then a middle-aged man's grief. He still hasn't come to terms with the loss of his mother. And it's not hard to feel sorry for Harry, and it's not hard to understand the pure hatred he has towards the media. There is no other way to put it. Harry hates the press. He hates the click of a camera, and he names Rupert Murdoch. He hates Murdoch. Good choice. He's a This book is broken into 3 parts, and in part 1 he holds the press responsible for the death of his mother. And as Diana died, nobody was next to her, but there were plenty of people around her taking photographs. In part 2, he blames the press for discovering his position in Afghanistan and cutting short his tour of duty, putting at risk his fellow soldiers. And in part 3, he blames the press for the racist abuse directed at his wife, for her suicidal feelings, for ending every relationship he has ever had with a woman, for taking safety away from him and his family. And in all 3 cases, I believe Harry to be spot on with his criticism. He leads you to believe Rupert Murdoch is a man of pure evil, and he is preaching to the converted because Rupert Murdoch is a It is very hard not to see Harry's point about the press, not to sympathise with him and his family. At the birth of every one of William's children, Harry is asked if he is disappointed about being further away from the throne, like he somehow wishes his brother would die childless just so that he can get a shot at being grand one day. Agree with Harry, most of the press are money-driven scumbags and they're supported by politicians who comprise of the dregs of humanity. I also believe Harry to be completely biased against the press. It's just that the worst possible opinion about the press really does seem to fit spot on. But then there's the rest of the memoir, and I'm really conflicted. I firmly believe that humans make mistakes and learn from them, and to hold humans accountable for things they did in their adolescence is harsh, especially as those events are things which we may learn from, things which may make us better human beings today. Harry is of a similar age to me, and there are 2 events in Harry's life that I can relate to. While in the army, Harry was filmed introducing his squad and used a racial slur to describe his little friend, Ahmed. The word he inserted into that sentence was short for Pakistani, and Harry claims he didn't realise it was a slur. You could almost compare it to Aussie in his mind. It is an error that seems ridiculous, but as somebody of a similar age to Harry, I didn't realise it was a slur either. I felt like I should when I found out, but I didn't know. And I was fortunate enough to never misuse it, never be filmed, never have the press track down everything that I said and put it under a microscope. To be honest, I don't know if I ever used it wrong. So I accept Harry's explanation, but then why did he use the slur on the page? Why did he then read it aloud in the audiobook? I've not said the word. We all know what the word is, but Harry repeated it. And I feel like he's learnt nothing from using that word. He has not considered that he might have Pakistani readers reading his book and getting upset at what he has said. Harry does not mention the other slur he used in the video. He doesn't mention his casual use of the army slang for the Taliban. He could have taken the chance to reflect on the culture that leads to these racial insults being normalized within white male friendship groups, but he does not. It is really uncomfortable and really hard to call people out for using racial slurs, but we have to do it. Later in his memoir, Harry talks about going to therapy, and it's such a wonderful thing for a white man to discuss openly and normalize his struggle with mental health. That makes him a great role model. But this situation, he's really missed a chance. It really feels to me like he doesn't have a good excuse for using the second racial slur. So, as a result, he doesn't mention it. The other incident I can relate to is wearing an SS uniform at a fancy dress party. I once wore a racist costume to a fancy dress party too. Personally, I thought I was ridiculing a stereotypical depiction. I thought I was making fun of stupid racists. I didn't realize I was being one myself, and I was really upset when my friends didn't realize what I thought was obvious, and I was upset that I didn't realise what should have been obvious to me. Now, some of my friends called me out. Harry's friends, in this case Will and Kate, did not call him out. They did not warn him. The availability of information about racism, the amount of airtime and discussion it gets, the position in our minds it takes is very different now to what it was 15 years ago. It is so much easier for ignorant white men like myself to educate ourselves. It's so easy to check things we're not sure about. It just wasn't like that 15 years ago. The information was not there. And even if it was there, it wasn't in our minds to search for it. It wasn't something we were trained to be sensitive about. And that is indicative of the culture at the time and why we need to fight against it and improve. It's something that we need to call out a little bit harder. And it needs to come from the people who do it. It needs to come from us white men. With the exception of Beyonce, Rihanna, and possibly Lizzo, Meghan Markle is probably the most famous black woman in the world. She is independently successful, talented, hardworking, and at least until she met the prince, had great PR. She is unsurprisingly very popular with the black community. Her reflection alone makes Harry a person of interest to black readers. It should come as no surprise that Harry's memoir will be picked up by a lot of black people, and surely he realizes that. Surely his wife told him that. And there is this argument between Harry and Will. Both brothers want to do charity work in Africa. Will saving elephants and working on conservation. Harry preventing AIDS from spreading. Both obviously very important issues. The two brothers start arguing over who gets Africa. That's not me being a clumsy white man. That's actually what is said in the book. The brothers had a fight in front of friends, and one of them said, "Africa needs both of you." It's not like Harry had a dictaphone on him. So the exact phrasing of many statements he writes, they're not accurate. We don't expect them to be accurate. He chooses how they appear on the page, and he could have put things a little bit differently in a way that didn't sound so imperial, so colonial. I can't help but to agree with the message behind this argument. You can both do charitable work in Africa. Yeah, that would be good. But is Harry even considering that he's going to have a lot of black readers when he writes the sentences like that? It just feels like the SS uniform all over again, and Harry's account of that. What was I thinking at the time? I wasn't. The lesson Harry needs to learn is to consider how other people will see him. Consider how these statements will sound to Africans, how Jews will see the SS uniform. What will amputees think of his boast of drinking champagne out of a prosthetic limb? Did the publishers even give him a sensitivity reader? I get that he wasn't saying things that he intended to be racist. I understand the intention, but Harry needs to understand how it sounds too. He needs to just put those people in the front of his mind when writing those things. There is a fight he had with Meghan early in their relationship. Harry doesn't go into details of what was said, but he does say that Meghan left the room, and when Harry found her, she said that he's not to speak to her like that again, and that she wouldn't be raising children in that environment. And somehow it ends with Harry going to therapy. Again, this is the dichotomy of the book, the dichotomy of Harry, because men dealing with their mental health, we need more examples of that. We need more examples of men not taking their shit out on their partners. Yet, he never says he was wrong. He's really unfinished. And do we applaud the effort or point out the flaws? I really think we need to do both. I've not discussed the time Harry got frostbite on his penis, nor his love for Botswana. I've not talked about his glowing portrait of his wife, who I can't help but to think more of after reading this. I really loved before meeting the Queen, Meghan said, "Don't worry, I love grandmothers." Or after, she asked about the Queen's assistant, the man who left with her, only to be told that was Prince Andrew. More importantly, I've not discussed Harry's simplistic opinions on war. For a man who starts this book by criticising his country's murder of Zulu warriors, he gets caught up in the emotion around 9/11, and he needs to remember that the Taliban weren't responsible for 9/11. Sure, they're aggressive. Sure, they do bad stuff. But Britain is the invading army. And in 100 years' time, there may be a prince looking at Britain's involvement in Afghanistan saying the exact same thing Harry is saying about Zulu warriors. It all just sums up to me that what Harry wants out of this book is to look good. But he's ultimately failed to consider what large segments of his readers will think. He doesn't call out any of his family for any racist comments they've made, other than towards his wife. He doesn't deride Prince Andrews for his role in sex trafficking or raping minors. He does show some understanding of what his family has historically done, but it really isn't enough. His mental health, his struggle with the press, his lovely opinions of his wife are all very nice. He wants you to like him, to forgive him, to take his side, and he may very well be on the side that is wronged, but he still doesn't get it. He might be much better than I expected, but he's still a spoilt rich boy all grown up, and he doesn't understand. If you like this video, click here to see me discuss Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died, and consider subscribing to this channel. Bye bye.